Hi, Acadiana. Meteorologist Dave Baker here on a Friday ahead of a big weekend. I know it's kind of a shorter week with the Labor Day weekend, but I know we're always ready to get to Friday and especially get into Saturday and Sunday. By the way, this is Let's Talk Tropics, where we kind of go over what's happening up in the tropical world and kind of take a look at the models to see what could be coming. We really only have one player out there, 91L, and I will say that the models have kind of flipped completely compared to yesterday. Yesterday, a lot of the models were kind of showing a bit of a scare for the northern Caribbean islands, the Bahamas, even South Florida, even parts of the East Coast. And today, at least one model is completely flip-flopping and backing off, in fact, having 91L fizzle out within a couple of days. And we'll look at the satellite images and kind of try to see what is going on. Good thing about 91L, though, is it is way out in the Atlantic. You can see the coordinates here on the left-hand side of your screen. So here in Acadiana, we're about 92 degrees longitude. That's where Lafayette is, about 92 degrees. So, it's about a sixth of the way around the world from us. So it's going to take a number of days to even get into the western part of the Atlantic and even really threaten the Leeward Islands. So we got a number of days to watch this, and I'm sure that those computer models are going to be changing up here quite a bit over the next several days. Real quick, here at home, we've got a decent amount of sunshine. It's a hot one. Temp around 90. It feels a little more like 98 with that dew point at 73. Dew points are really going to drop off going into next week. I think we got a nice treat with at least a taste of fall. I'm not going to call it full-blown fall, but it's just going to give you that little, it really can get a little bit drier and cooler here in South Louisiana, because we all know during the month of September, this is about the time where we think it's never going to get cool again. Radar showing really clear skies across most of Acadiana. Not picking up anything on the local radar, not picking up anything on the big radar here, but there are some showers, some thunderstorms back to our northwest. That's kind of the leading edge of that cold front that's going to work in here tomorrow night. Unfortunately, that could bring a couple of showers for the Cajuns game, maybe the Tigers game. Southern's also playing at home over in Baton Rouge. So there's going to be a lot of games going on. I think the Friday night football is going to be fine tonight, but Saturday college games could be impacted, especially locally and especially during the evening hours. There's a look at our traffic cams. Getting a really pretty day here in Lafayette and also over toward Breaux Bridge and Henderson. Up in Alexandria, looking good. Opelousas, smooth sailing too. So we've got some hazy sunshine out there. Couple of things that we're looking at here on the nation satellite. Again, this is that area where that frontal boundary is, and some of that's going to be working its way down to the south. Had a little bit of tropical moisture associated with Tropical Storm Lorena, which made landfall yesterday. Some of that is going to get sucked up into that ahead of the front. So as that front starts to come southward toward us, there's a little better chance for some showers and thunderstorms. But the good news is all that dry air is up here to the north. I know that looks like a John Madden type of scribbly thing on there, but that's kind of the players that we have for the next couple of days here, at least locally here at home, and we are going to be seeing some cooler and drier weather next week, so I hope you're ready for that. Live cams over in Panama City Beach. Looks like the sun behind a cloud where the beach is, but a lot of clear skies out there. Gorgeous day at Orange Beach. Of course, one of my favorite places in the whole wide world, Dauphin Island, Alabama. My family and I vacationed there many times over the last 20, 25 years or so. Love that place. Cocodrie looking pretty good from Lumcon. This is a south view, so you're looking out toward the Gulf. Just a few spotty clouds out there. And a little bit farther toward the west, over toward Galveston Bay, we are looking at some spotty clouds over southeastern Texas. But generally, everybody is dry here along the northern Gulf Coast as the frontal boundary is pushed well into the offshore waters, and some drier air in the mid-levels is preventing a lot of the cloud development. So if you're going to do some boating, should be a pretty nice day. South winds about 5 to 10 knots and seas running about 1 to 2 feet. So let's go ahead and get into some of the analysis of what's going on. Not a lot going on here over the Gulf waters, but we still have that old frontal boundary that's kind of draped out here in the middle part of the Atlantic, and it does look like there's a little bit of a low trying to develop there. And then south of the front, you got more of the heavy downpours here over South Florida. But this right here, we'll just kind of keep an eye on. Sometimes you get low pressure to develop along these fronts. Occasionally they can become tropical, but that doesn't seem to be what's happening right now, so I'm not too concerned about that. Central America, pretty quiet day. except for Costa Rica and down toward Panama, where we've got kind of a monsoonal low that's over here around Colombia, and that's going to kind of push its way off toward the southwest. So it isn't tropical in nature, and it's just going to provide some heavy downpours there for portions of Central America. And you can see it a little bit better here on the Caribbean satellite. That's what we call a monsoonal low. We get the intertropical convergence zone, which you may have heard, and I'll show that to you on the Atlantic satellite. But it's just basically during the summertime, it rises a little bit farther to the north, and then the wintertime, it pushes farther to the south. And it's kind of where the equatorial air masses kind of come together. And that's why it's called the intertropical convergence zone. So occasionally you get some low pressure areas that develop along that are not tropical in nature, and they'll continue to drift off toward the west. And a good way to see where the intertropical convergence zone is, it's right in here. And that's kind of that path where you see a lot of our tropical systems come in, but it's basically the southern hemisphere's air masses and the northern hemisphere air mass kind of joining together. And it is a little bit farther to the north of the equator during the summer, and then it drops a little bit farther to the south as we go into the winter. But 91L is out here in the middle part of the Atlantic, right about in here. There is where 91L is right now. It doesn't look too great on the satellite imagery, at least for right now. But if you want to look at all the different players that are out there, there's a tropical wave over the eastern Caribbean. There's that low associated with the front near Florida, 91L in the middle part of the Atlantic, and then a couple of waves are going to work their way off the African coast going into next week. So your tropical weather outlook, again, the only thing that's out there is 91L, and the forecast track drags it westward over toward the Caribbean islands, and the percentage of chance for this developing is north of 80% over the next several days, but not exactly sure if it's going to be happening today or perhaps over the course of the weekend. Part of the reason why I don't think it's going to happen today is it just doesn't look that great on the satellite imagery. There's a little bit of a low-level circulation trying to get going, but there's just a lack of convection. There's not a whole lot of thunderstorm activity associated with that wave as it drifts off toward the west. Now, it is kind of in an area with some drier Saharan air. As it moves off toward the west, though, it may have a better chance as the air mass is a little bit more humid. There's the position. I know that not a great map. It doesn't really give you any reference of where it is, but your Windward and Leeward Islands are over here, and Africa is over here, so it's about halfway across the Atlantic. And there's a look at our hurricane models. And one thing to notice is you see there's a lot of lines at the very beginning, and there aren't as many lines as it goes over toward the Caribbean islands. That's because some of the models are only keeping this an active system for 2 or 3 days and then having it fizzle out. And the Euro is one of them. And I'm going to show you that stuff here in just a little bit. But any of the models that do hold on to this for the next 5 or 6 days, some of them take it up to hurricane status. Most keep them as a tropical storm. That would be okay because most of the Windward Islands, the Leeward Islands, Northern Caribbean, although sometimes tropical storms bring some heavy rain, having that near miss by Aaron was kind of a scare a few weeks ago. So anything that's weaker than a hurricane and just a tropical storm, they might be able to handle that a little bit better. So there's the Euro ensemble suite. And again, the ensemble, instead of just giving you one solution, it gives you several what ifs. So it is the same model that's run over and over and over again, but there are little tweaks here and there because we know there's going to be changes and uncertainties in the forecast process. So it gives you a whole bunch of different scenarios, and you can see how spread out these are. And the black line is kind of like that deterministic. That's that one point where it thinks it's going to go, and then all these other lines out here are the what ifs. So you notice that it just kind of stops there across the central part of the Atlantic Ocean. So if it's going to stop there, the Euro kind of fizzles it out at that point in time, and then we don't have to worry about anything over here. So that would be a good scenario, but I'll say it's a complete shift from what we had yesterday. Now, the GFS ensemble suite is still at least taking it out here for a number of days, and I believe that would be about days 9 or 10 on this particular map. But you see that everything's kind of concentrated here, so the forecast is pretty confident for the first couple of days, and then it really starts to spread out on the track as you get farther down the road, which is usually what happens anyway. The farther out, when you get to day 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, there's a lot more uncertainty. You're going to have a bigger spread in some of the models there. And let's say this was a tropical system that was out there, I would guess that the forecast cone would probably look something like this. And it looks very, very similar to what we saw with the tropical weather outlook. So that's the reason why you see all of these different computer models that are coming in. But the GFS compared to the Euro still wants to hold on to it and develop it through the islands and perhaps into the western part or the eastern part of the Caribbean. So this is one of those things that we don't necessarily have to be concerned with over the weekend, but I would definitely check in with social media just to see what's going on, to see if it's holding on or if it is actually going to fizzle over the course of the weekend. So let's look at that Euro model first. And with that, we can see that the Euro, at least at this point today, really doesn't show much out there. In fact, it just doesn't even really show a wave, but that's about where 91L would be. So it's really not even showing up on here. And as we fast forward, you see the low there, but it just doesn't really materialize. And in fact, as we get into this weekend, next week rather, this is Monday, this is Tuesday, this is Wednesday, and you can see there's really no evidence of anything that's out here in the western part of the Atlantic or the Caribbean. It just isn't showing up anymore. So that's an indication that the Euro isn't very excited about anything happening there. This that's back here to the west, that's another piece of energy that could be coming in behind that. So it doesn't look like the Euro's too turned on by this thing compared to the way it was yesterday. So let's go into the GFS. Let me roll it back here to today. And as we fast forward it, you see that low pressure area over the central part of the Atlantic. It doesn't strengthen very much. So this latest model of the GFS, even though it seems like it's trying to take it down here into portions of the Caribbean, it just doesn't seem like there's a lot going on with it. So again, the GFS, maybe it has a resurgence there over around the Yucatan Channel, but this doesn't go out until Monday the 12th. So we're out 10 days from here, and maybe the remnants of it would be there. That's probably my best guess on that, but it's really not showing anything too strong, first of all, and then as it disappears so many times between the Atlantic and going into the Caribbean, it's really hard to put a forecast together. So can't bet on anything there. Let's go to the Canadian model. Again, we'll go ahead and roll this back to where we are now. The place we want to look at is right there. That's the low. So let's go ahead and fast forward. Looks like the Canadian model wants to, hold it together. And look, I'm looking at these models almost the same time for the first time as you are. And the Canadian model really drops this thing off, which is surprising. Wow, look at this front. There's a pretty big front that's coming off the East Coast too. So that would tend to turn anything away, even if it did develop. So Canadian model, pretty promising there over the next 10 days, and it does seem to be following along with the other two models. So the icon, there's the low moving off toward the west. We can only go 7 days with the icon, but the icon model, today's version compared to yesterday's Let's Talk Tropics, looks like by about the time we get into this position, it's about right there, and that would be Wednesday of next week. But it doesn't really reform at all. So all four models have really kind of pulled back on any tropical development. So that obviously would be good news for everybody, especially during the mid part of the hurricane season. I mean, we're nearing the peak of the hurricane season. Next week is when the 10th would hit. So what is that? Tuesday of next week or Wednesday of next week is the peak of the hurricane season. So it's something we'll watch, but there's some shear that's bothering 91L right now, and that's going to be an inhibiting factor. There is some dry air and some Saharan dust out there too, but that's a look at the wind shear directly around that circulation, or what may be starting to be a circulation, but there is a lot of wind shear out there, so that might be the inhibiting factor too. Water temperatures, definitely warm enough. Most of our water temperatures are warmer than normal. Even the areas where the eddy was from Hurricane Aaron a few weeks ago is starting to ramp up. And part of the reason why we get a lot more concerned about a tropical system that's out there taking more of that southerly route is we really don't want any tropical systems to go within that circle because of the tropical cyclone heat potential. It's just much warmer water and water that's very warm that goes deep below the surface, and developing tropical systems can easily tap into that, and occasionally you can get some rapid intensification. Let's look a little bit farther down the road. Global tropics hazard outlook still showing at least some lower than so around 20% or less on some development there in the Gulf or the central Atlantic, which is basically tracking 91L. Maybe things will get a little bit more busy as we get into September 17th through the 23rd, according to week 3 of the Global Tropics Hazard Outlook. Frequency, we're pretty much on the peak of the season. There is the peak. That's September the 10th. So I guess we would be right about over there. So not very long before we're going to be seeing the peak of the hurricane season. If this can come and go with only a couple of tropical waves out there, that would be pretty amazing compared to some of the hurricane seasons we've seen in the past. So let's keep our fingers crossed that this one will go ahead and just fizzle out. And not only will we not have to worry about it, but the Caribbean islands too, and the Bahamas and the east coast of the U.S. But nothing to worry about for the weekend. But if you want, check my social media pages, and I will have updates both Saturday and again on Sunday. So I hope you enjoy Let's Talk Tropics. If you do, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and please turn on those notifications too. That way you know when the next live broadcast hits. You can also hear my forecast every weekday on Big 102.1, Planet Radio 106.7, and Freedom 95.1. And speaking of the weekend, I'll be on at WBRZ Channel 2 Saturday morning at 10 a.m. and Sunday morning at 9 a.m. And then I'll also be there Monday and Tuesday from 5 to 9 a.m. for tune-in. So if you want to join us there, many of you do get this on your local television listings or your cable box. If you don't, you can always go to WBRZ.com and you can find a link to the live stream. Don't forget, over the weekend, too, just check my social media pages, both on Facebook and X, for any updates on 91L. And, of course, thanks to everyone who's already subscribed to Acadiana Weather Today right here on YouTube. I'm Meteorologist Dave Baker. Hope you all have a great weekend, and I'll see you on Monday.